Okay.
Now it is.
All right, everybody, let's call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock and let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Obviously, you imagine a flag in your mind. If you guys could join us. You ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America.
and to the republic
Republic for which stands
one nation,
one nation,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did I say that wrong? Under God, I forgot that. Sorry. I was actually printed it out because I was so afraid I'd get it wrong and then I read the wrong one. So whatever. Anyway, Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to move on to agenda approval. Like I said, the only change I know of is to remove the February 11th minutes from the consent agenda because we approved them at the March 2nd meeting. So if I can get a motion to approve the agenda with that one change.
So moved by Easter.
By Strobel.
Second, Wheaton.
By Easter, I think I heard a second by Strobel. Approve the agenda with the following, with that change. Any discussion? Okay, Amy, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Ms. Bowe.
Here.
Mr. Kroon.
Yes.
Mr. Strobel.
Yes.
Wheaton, yes. Mr. Easter.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to go over a few things just to mention, as you all know, due to the coronavirus, we have a stay-at-home order. So we're conducting our meeting in this format. You can call in tonight and listen to the meeting live. We'll also be uploading a recording of the meeting online. So that's an option as well for anybody who wants to watch it later, and anybody in the public. A few logistical notes, we've covered several of these, but hoping Marilyn will join us later with audio. We probably won't see her in video, but hoping she can join us with audio. As we mentioned, all of our votes will be roll call votes tonight because of our format. It will be sort of hard sometimes to jump in, so I will be pausing frequently. I'm going to try and remember to pause frequently throughout the meeting to see if anybody has any questions or comments. There is a ability to, I think, like raise your hand on this app, but I'm not exactly sure who. Oh, I see Marilyn here. Marilyn, can you hear me?
I can.
Excellent.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Just called the meeting to order a couple minutes ago and approved the agenda. And we're just kind of going through some logistical things right now. Just so you know, all of our votes tonight will be roll call votes because of the format of the meeting. And I will, like I was just saying, I will pause frequently to see if anybody has questions or comments. If I miss it, please feel free to interrupt me or wave your hands at me or something. So forgive me if things get delayed. We also mentioned when we do motions tonight, if you do a motion or a second, to just use your last name afterward to help Karen and I kind of track that. And then we've already covered this. I think everyone's already doing it, but please mute your microphones when you're not speaking to help avoid echoes and any other stray sounds. Anybody have anything else tonight that they want to mention logistically who has more experience with these calls than me? Nope. Okay. All right, then we'll move on to some future events and past events, as it turns out. Please check the district calendar and resource guide or the district website for a complete list of monthly events. Friday, April 10th, we had no school for students and staff. Monday, April 13th, no school for students, and we had a staff professional learning day. And Tuesday, May 12th, 2020, we have a regular school board meeting at 7 p.m. with communication to the board and administration at 6:45. Obviously, we don't know right now if we will be able to have that meeting in person or not, but we'll roll with that as we go. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. As I mentioned, we removed that one item approving the February 11th minutes because they were already approved. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move.
Is that you, Marilyn? Okay. Motion by Forsberg.
Second by Easter.
Second, Easter. All right, to approve the following items of the consent agenda, minutes of the February 24th school board work session and minutes of the March 2nd school board regular meeting. Bills paid for February 2020 in amounts totaling $3,750,483. Amy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Bo? Sarah?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Mr. Kroon?
Yes.
Mr. Strobel?
Yes.
Berg?
Yes.
Sweeten, yes. Mr. Easter?
Yes.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you. We are moving on to discussion reports and information items. We will do a extended flexible learning and COVID-19 response. I just want to start before anybody talks with a huge thank you to all of you who were involved in getting distance learning up and running and getting it going so well. We are extremely grateful to all of you.
So I just shared my screen. I want to make sure that it, you all see that? All right. So what we want to walk you through is kind of, we're going to go backwards in time and just kind of give you a glimpse into all the planning. And I was giving you a ton of updates initially as this was going on. I was giving you regular updates, even a couple a day. But we're going to just kind of step back in time a little bit and walk you through. Everybody will, pretty much everybody in the cabinet team is jumping in at some point here. And as Amy just said, I want to echo that. And my team, who are all on this at this meeting tonight, have been amazing the past 5-6 weeks in their leadership. We often talk about with our Spring Lake Park leadership approach that it starts with partnership, but you partner when we should, and then manage when one must. And it took a lot of management and coordination of a lot of things to make the last couple of weeks go as well as they have. That doesn't mean there haven't been bumps, but I really appreciate the work that they've all done and wanted to start out by mentioning that. So this goes back to March 6th. Of course, we had our first case of COVID-19 on March 6th, the week of March 9th during spring break. So we left for spring break and everybody kind of went off their way. And during that time, it escalated rapidly. I know I was on vacation with Jill and Sydney, and then I started getting calls from the commissioner and other people while I was there and talking to them. And we started meeting regularly. And so March 18th to 27th, the schools across Minnesota were closed to plan for extended flexible learning. We started childcare and orchestrated meal delivery. And then March 30th through at least April 30th, we're doing the extended flexible learning. And we'll talk more about the likely extension of that. As I just mentioned, we started the child care and the food service, and I was going to let Colleen kind of hit these next couple slides and walk you through them.
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening, everyone. So with about 30 staff at 3 different sites, we've been able to serve child care to the emergency workers. And to date, we've served 91 children, an average of 36 children a day. There's more signed up each day, but we're finding that 36 is our average number. We've served 57 families since March 18th, and we are currently serving the families that fall in the Tier 1 and Tier 2 as specified by the governor in the state of Minnesota. This is all made possible by following really strict CDC and MDH recommended practices, hygiene practices, as well as daily cleaning by our great custodial staff. So we're very thankful for that. And then starting March 18th as well, we started serving meals to the children in our community. It's really a cool number to see. I've been there every single day and the number quickly adds up. So to date, we've served 31,790 meals. So not only are we distributing them into the community, but we're also packing that many. It takes a team of great nutrition services staff under the leadership of Amy Kimmel. So we have about 30 team members there. And then we've had, since the beginning of this, we've used our paraprofessionals, our community education staff. Our bus drivers from Lorenz have been very helpful and been a joy to work with as well. We've had about 31 team members there, and now we're branching out even further and adding more individuals into that team as paraprofessionals are being called into other responsibilities. We have 10 distribution sites, one of them being the high school. We're serving there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10 to 2. And then we go out to 9 sites using 3 Lorenz buses. That model has worked well. We're able to track where the folks are in our community and where we believe the need is, and our parents and our families have responded really well. They've enjoyed the food. They come out. We've had families comment on that's their one outing for the day, and they're just excited to get out of the house and do that with their children. So it's exciting. Finally, on Fridays, it started in 2013 when we had our Fund a Dream Gala, Fund a Dream at the Gala for the weekend food pack program. And thankfully, we have a good bank of money available to us to be pulling from for weekend food packs, because now on a weekly basis, we're handing out about 800 plus weekend food packs. So far, since that early March date, 2,595 weekend packs have been distributed to families in the community. So the weekend pack, we're able to provide from the nutrition services, we're able to provide breakfast and lunch for each of the 5 days of the week. But then we have that weekend gap. So the weekend pack provides those snacks and meals just to carry folks through the weekend. So very grateful to the Panther Foundation for their support. We're also utilizing the Angel Fund, which also was a Gala Fund a Dream a number of years ago as well. The Angel Fund has allowed us to provide gift cards to Target, to Cub, gas cards if necessary, helping with rent payments if there's emergency situations. So very thankful for our partner with the Panther Foundation. Jeff?
Thank you, Colleen. And Colleen's done a great job the past couple of weeks. Tony was really instrumental working with Colleen too at the front end of this. So the two of them have done a great job with this, and now Amy Schultz working with Amy Kimmel as well with the food service. I'm really appreciative of the work that they've done. Kind of moving now to the teaching and learning and what we've looked at with that. The good news is we had a foundation that we were able to build from with extended flexible learning. We've been the one-to-one district, so we did have those resources available. Obviously, it's different in this environment than it was face-to-face. But we also had already had some plans for extended flexible learning, so we were able to build off of that. Yet it wasn't like a plug and play, here we go. It wasn't that simple. So going back to, I mentioned when this hit back in March, and I started giving you kind of regular updates as a school board. But March 11th was the day that we kind of started daily cabinet and COVID response meetings. Again, I was on vacation, and so we would meet. It was 8:30 where I was, and it was 1:30 here. We'd meet every day and be looking at everything that was happening. Tony was kind of took the lead on the COVID response team as far as looking at, because he works with healthcare, of really looking at what we're doing around the healthcare. He was participating in some of the state meetings and so on. I was talking with the commissioner, but there was just a lot of work going on among cabinet in how are we going to transition to this. And you may remember we did an initial piece just knowing that we were going to have a lot of teachers that would have to take, some 14-day quarantines and things like that. That prior to the governor even making the decision to go extended flexible learning, we had postponed the start of school after spring break just to be able to do some planning. And then the decision was made by the governor to go, can't remember what the exact date was, to the end of March with the extended flexible learning. So we began moving on that. But what we really tried to do was take a tiered approach to this. So our cabinet worked a lot on it that first week. Then we brought in, and during that same week over spring break, sometimes luck happens, and Hope and her family, for example, had taken a vacation over, I think it was President's Weekend, maybe. So she happened to be at home. So, and a number of her team members were, so she had them in, and they started jumping right into this over spring break, working extended hours enough that, like I remember saying to Hope, like, stop working this weekend because people were putting in such long hours. And Hope will talk about that, really developing a framework and the guidance so that as teachers came back, we were ready to support them. And they were really ready. That on March 17th and 18th, we just brought back the principals and our continuous improvement innovation coaches so that they could provide some real-time feedback to the framework and the guidance document that Hope's team had developed. They really took, and through our conversations, we really took a focus on our customers, looking at who are our internal customers and our teachers and staff primarily, and how do we support them as they transition to a brand new platform to teach from. We didn't want to do what we're seeing some other systems do and what we are experiencing of just kind of each individual teacher kind of being left to their own devices. And having multiple platforms that students will have to navigate. So we spent time looking at what are the specific platforms that we're going to use as learning platforms. What kind of things can we just do to make sure that we're supporting teachers in that? And then also our primary customers, the students and families, how do we support them? And they put a lot of work into that. So then the next piece was our principals and continuous improvement innovation coaches providing feedback and iterating off of that initial guidance. And there was a lot of temptation to bring people in earlier because teachers were kind of saying, we want to get going, we want to get going. And we said, just stay at home for right now. Let us get a foundation built first. And that really paid off. And because then when they came in, we were really ready to do quality professional learning with them March 19th to the 23rd, and really provide support for them. And had things ready to go. And then March 23rd to 27th, and 23rd was kind of an overlap of meeting and moving to individual. There was individual support, individual planning, collaborative planning by teachers, and then just support from principals and KICs and others, meeting with teachers to support them so that they would be ready to go that first day of extended flexible learning. And then now on April 13th, we had an opportunity to step back, look at what was working. We did a lot of work with the principals this past week. And we'll talk a little bit later about how we've been getting a lot of insights from teachers throughout this process and others to really guide our kind of real-time adjustments along the way. Because even with all that planning, we knew that there were going to be bumps, and that was what Hope and I put out in the video to the teachers right from the very start. It's like, hey, this isn't going to be perfect, but we'll adapt as we need to adapt. So with that, I wanted to share this. So we kind of had that purposeful planning. And what's really nice is that when it comes unsolicited from a staff member, that they recognize that and they found the support in that. And this just came from a staff member yesterday, was sent to Hope. So we thought that's perfect timing. Let's share it. Because they just said, I believe SLP did a great job of managing everyone's stress and anxiety during the initial planning phase. I've heard of other districts that brought everyone in on day one, and it was overwhelming for everyone without direction. SLP, on the other hand, started with cabinet, then added ed services, then added school leadership, then added teachers, and then added students and families. This tiered approach allowed direction to be created, allowed each tier to deal with their own stress and anxiety before leading the next tier. Each group thus had time to work through their struggles, come to terms with the new reality, and devise a plan going forward. Now, still, when you have 420 teachers, for example, I think the vast majority are doing pretty well. Of course, there's some still struggling, and we're providing supports along the way for that. But it's fun when you get a message like that people recognize that purposeful process that we utilized. So with that, I want to hand it over to Hope, who's been key and instrumental in doing this. And I just want to give her a big round of applause for her work, because she's done awesome. So with that, I'll hand it over to her and let you give you some more detail.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And it's not, it should go without saying that there is a great team surrounding me to get all of this pulled together. And for that, I am very appreciative. So as Jeff mentioned earlier, it was in the middle of our spring break when the Ed Services crew really started to move on building on the foundations of what we already had so that we could create a shared framework for the learning and teaching components of extended flexible learning. First, as Jeff referenced, we utilized our SLP 3D design thinking methodology and the processes for effective professional learning design as we approach this work. And just as a reminder, our 3D process starts with discovery, so gaining insight from stakeholder experiences and taking a walk in their shoes. And I can't overemphasize enough that we did this over and over again as we worked through the initial design of extended flexible learning, consistently asking ourselves and each other, wait a minute, what does that look and sound like for our kids? Wait a minute, what would that look and sound like for our teachers and our families? So one example noted here is as part of the professional learning and the work teachers did when they did come in was around a common trimester overview template that we used and posted for families across all grade levels and content areas. And we did that so families weren't navigating multiple documents when they looked at what was coming up over the course of the try if they had kids in multiple schools. This template also gives an overview of the key learning outcomes for all upcoming units in the trimester, and then also lays out key communication points for families where teachers will report on progress on student learning, natural and authentic to the learning of the unit. So we also developed an extensive resource library for staff, some of which already existed and some of which we curated from our own teachers and other standard resources, so that when our teachers did walk in the door after our extended spring break, they had a ton of resources at their fingertips. So the resource library, which is housed in a staff resources group in Schoology, includes things like our staff technology toolkit. And this included resources on our standard digital toolkit, from how-to videos to examples of designing student work using the tools, to recordings of live interactive sessions with staff that addressed real-time questions on the use of the tools. Our resource library also includes examples of upcoming units and lessons that had already been transitioned from a face-to-face format to an extended flexible learning format. And that was done over spring break by a number of our ed services coordinators who took an upcoming unit and then reframed it for extended flex learning. It also came from our online and hybrid teachers. We took examples of strong work from their courses and made them available for all to look at. It also includes best practices for online learning. Again, we had already developed professional learning modules for our online and hybrid course teachers. So we took components of those modules and opened them up for all teacher learning. And then it also includes ideas for synchronous or live learning experiences. And this was actually an example of our team's response to a real-time need that we heard from teachers after they did some initial learning and design around their synchronous sessions with students. We provided some examples of strong work around those. Our framework also includes some digital curricular resources. So again, starting spring break week, our coordinators started working with the publishers of our core curricular materials right away to get permission to post PDFs of all of our hard copy resources behind our password protected learning platforms, so either Seesaw or Schoology. So students and teachers would have access to what they need for upcoming units without having to worry about getting all of the hard copies of everything distributed to students. So the publishers too of the companies have been great, fantastic to work with. We also added some digital curricular resources that would provide additional supplemental tools and resources for teachers as they transitioned their units and lessons to an extended flex learning format. Technology access for students and families. The partnership between our technology team and our ed services team and others in the system has just been second to none. Everyone took on roles and responsibilities to get our K-3 iPads, which are typically housed at school, ready for deployment to kids and families to their homes. Additionally, that partnership really has extended in so many other areas. One of the most important is partnering across our system to ensure that our families have Wi-Fi access so that students can engage in the work that the teachers are designing. The technology toolkit for families, we knew that some of our families would be logging into some of our standard learning technology tools for the first time. So Geraldine Nemenich, our learning technology coordinator, built off the videos that currently existed to actually exponentially expand our tech toolkit videos for families. And just tonight, Geraldine sent me a text that let me know, and she just said she was just checking in on a couple things on the student and family tech toolkit and saw that there have been over 8,000 views of tech toolkit videos that she has created over the past 2 weeks. She continues to create more tech toolkit videos, help documents, anything that might be needed in response to the real-time needs from both teachers and families. So a huge gratitude to Geraldine for that. As we go to the next slide, another piece of the framework that we developed was our guidelines for extended flex learning. Jeff, I don't know if you can move to the next one.
Did move it, did it not advance?
Oh, it's freeze. Nope, it's frozen on the shared framework.
No.
Oh, there it is.
I can see it. Yep.
That was just me. Thank you. So the guidelines for our guidance document for extended flexible learning. So while all of that work was going on that I shared in that previous slide, Our Ed Services team was also working on a guidance document for our teachers that provided a clear, concise description of extended flexible learning. So again, we had the foundation of our processes and practices for winter weather flexible learning, but we knew that it was important to be clear that extended flexible learning was a continuation of the work that kids were doing face-to-face and a continuation of our work to create personalized and engaging learning experiences that continue to move us closer to our vision, ultimately creating the conditions for our kids to become powerful, curious, and independent learners. So the frame of the guidance document and some initial descriptions were created by our Ed Services team. Then, as Jeff shared in the timeline, we brought in our principals and our coaches who provided additional design for each component of that guidance document, then gave each other feedback on what they had designed. And all of this led to the following guidelines for SLP's approach to extended flex learning that you see on the screen. Each day, teachers provide a daily update for students on their daily instruction, student work, and/or learning experiences. And at least a couple of days a week, those daily greetings and updates are done through video messaging, which allows our students to see and hear our teachers' faces and voices with the purpose of building relationships and maintaining connections during this time, at least one way in which we're doing that. Students also experience at least one synchronous or live real-time interaction with their teachers at least once a week. These live sessions are also recorded so that students can view them at a later time if they happen to miss a live time. Synchronous sessions have included things like focus lessons for teaching reading that include teacher modeling, small group meetings to do checks on student learning and progress, mini lectures with time for question and answers, collaborative small group discussions with peers, and more. Another piece of our guidance document is that students also need to have at least one collaborative opportunity to interact with peers in their learning. I mentioned some of those synchronous options above, but these might also be asynchronous, meaning they're not live and can be completed at any time. Examples are discussion board posts and replies in Schoology, the use of Flipgrid for video responses and replies to peers, providing peer-to-peer feedback on work, and collaborative projects. Next, our teachers are providing consistent and meaningful feedback on student work to move learning forward. This allows teachers to monitor and adjust instruction for individual students, small groups of students, or for the whole class as they formatively assess and give feedback along the way. And then finally, there are consistent opportunities for students and families to connect with teachers on questions. Often, our teachers will describe those as office hours. These may be open WebEx sessions where kids can just drop in for help. They can drop in just for a face-to-face connection, or they may include schedule times to provide direct support and scaffolding for student learning. The next slide just talks about a couple of examples of things we've seen. It's been pretty amazing to see some examples of strong curricular design through the extended flexible learning format. And our principals, coaches, and our communications team have been great at sharing examples of strong work within each building and across buildings. And here are just two of many examples. For example, in 7th grade American Studies, one of our teachers redesigned his World War II unit to engage students using merit badges. And as they work through the learning opportunities, they earn different levels of rank with the goal of becoming a general. And then one of our 1st grade teachers had a science unit around animal life cycles. And then students used just found materials at home to demonstrate the life cycle of a frog. And I noticed the pictures on the slide doesn't capture my favorite one, which is someone using a plastic spoon to demonstrate the tadpole stage of the frog life cycle. That was pretty creative. So it's been fun. It's been, I have so much appreciation, not only for the team that did a lot of the curating of the resources, certainly a ton of appreciation for that, but also just a ton of appreciation for our teachers, our families, and our students who have just taken the leap into this extended flexible learning and are really soaring. We're seeing a lot of soaring happening for all of those stakeholders. So with that, I shall pass it on to Tony.
Oh, can I just jump in for 1 second? Since we're about halfway through the presentation, it looks like I just wanted to pause real quick and see if anybody had any questions so far on what we've covered.
Question
All right.
for Colleen. I was just wondering back about the meals prepared. I went kind of quick and I just didn't hear what she said. Was there 800 plus weekend food packs every weekend?
Right. Our Friday count right now is about 800.
That's amazing. That's just amazing. I just wanted to double check. That's really awesome.
I also wanted to welcome, I think we have at least one member of the public joining us to in, so just wanted to welcome them. Does anybody else have any questions?
I do, Amy. This is
Yeah, go ahead.
Michael. You mentioned the tech toolkit, and I'm wondering where that can be located because I'm dealing with 7 different applications by my last count between my 3 kids, and perhaps that might be helpful.
Sure. Yeah. The tech toolkit is on our district website. And it's attached to both the major information page for families around COVID-19, and then it's also linked in through our digital learning. So I will definitely send that out, but it's, yes, it is out there available. Also, it's been linked to each school's newsletter every Wednesday. So that is showing up in the weekly newsletters as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is,
Anybody else?
yeah, this is John. I have a question for Hope related to the guidelines. One, you said synchronous communication once a week at a minimum. Is there, are you finding that that's adequate, that's going to be changing, or you're just starting to evaluate that? Where does that stand?
Sure. So after just having completed 9 days of it, that's where we just landed. Actually, today, Tuesday, was our 10th day of students and teachers interacting with extended flex learning. So we have we revisited that along the way, and for our 7-12, where kids are getting that for each of their 6 classes, that's seeming to be adequate, in addition to then those open office hours, kind of the open WebEx for Q&A, for additional scaffolding and help. At the K-6 level, I would say that I don't have a number, but a good number of our elementary teachers have chosen to do more synchronous each week. And so we'll continue to monitor that and to monitor student learning in response to that and adjust as we see necessary.
Question, Marilyn, not a question, but a comment. All of these people need to be so highly commended. This is just an amazing amount of work that was put together in just a very short time. I'm just absolutely amazed, and I hope it's going as smoothly as it sounds.
Ellen. Anybody else have questions before we hand it back over to Tony?
I just have one more comment as well, Amy.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, in addition to all the touches, Jace has an IEP. He has additional services that he receives throughout the day. And he has a check-in, just started this week. He has a check-in with his para. He's still getting speech services. He's still getting social skills services. So I think it's just amazing how they were able to pull those services together as well, especially for a kid who needs a lot of structure in his life. He was kind of needing his people. So I'm sure there are a lot of other parents out there that really appreciate the fact that by being very creative and thoughtful, those services are being offered to the kiddos that still need them as well.
Wonderful. All right, thank you. And,
See Tony, but he might. Tony, can you still hear us? Okay. All right. We can't see you, but we'll let you hit this next slide there. Go for it.
Oh, I'm sorry, my video crashed. Amy, that was actually a perfect segue for me. I'm going to talk briefly about student supports. And before I jump in, I wanted to echo your sentiment and the sentiment of many others, just how proud I am of the work our special educators and student services staff, the work that they're doing, meeting the unique needs of our students has just been exceptional. In the area of special education, many of you know that it's a really technical field and it has a ton of procedural requirements. But before just blindly jumping in and applying all of those requirements within extended flexible learning, we first reviewed guidance from a variety of sources. We reviewed information from the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Special Education Program Division, the Minnesota Department of Education, and then several local special education attorneys shared a bunch of FAQs with school districts. So this pause to review multiple viewpoints allowed us to design a process that first and foremost met the needs of each of our students with disabilities, while simultaneously ensuring that we were meeting our obligations under the law and also honoring parent needs and priorities, while minimizing the amount of paperwork our staff needed to complete. So balancing all of those things was really, really challenging, and a lot of good thinking and design work went into that. If I had to boil it down, essentially what I'd say is that it looked for parents, and Amy, you can share if this has been your perspective, but we really wanted very personalized communications between our parents and our special educators. We're working together to figure out plans that are going to work best for students with really unique needs and families that are also juggling multiple demands at home. In the area of student services, we know that student mental health needs didn't magically go away when we went to extended flexible learning. So we had another design team comprised of psychologists, counselors for personalized learning, and social workers get together and develop a robust array of supports, both individual and group formats for students during this time. The individual and group supports that were in place prior to COVID-19 have certainly continued now, but we're also able now to begin to bring additional supports to other students that may not have been getting things before COVID. Finally, we've heard from many families, and it was a topic on the national news tonight, that some families have struggled to create routines for their children within an extended flexible learning environment. And my wife and I are struggling with it here with our 8-year-old son. And we heard these families loud and clear. And because of that, we brought in a nationally recognized expert in the field of technology and social media to present to our families. Dr. Devorah Heitner spoke to over 200 parents last Thursday night, and she shared strategies for creating routines and serving as positive mentors for their children's technology usage. And it was extremely well received. So again, I'm just super proud of the work that's been going on within special education and student services.
Thank you, Tony. And they have done a great job. And like you said, a lot of work went into that. We've heard a lot about a lot of the teaching and learning. What still comes down to is relationships. And this is kind of like one of the things that we've asked our principals to do is share shout outs each day of things that they're hearing. And this was a story that a teacher shared with one of our principals. And I thought I'd just let you read it. I don't have to read it to you. But it just kind of talks about this isn't just all about the platform for learning. It's still about relationships. So this was at the middle school, and I still think it's so impressive that the teacher just recognized the need of this student. A lot of people could have just said, hey, we're done, and bye, and clicked off. And, and this teacher took the time to ask first, are you safe? And then, yes, just alone. And then said, okay, we'll work alone together. And then just hung out. I think Tom Larson shared with me, it was like about 30, 45 minutes. The teacher just sat and did her work, and the students did their work and spent that time. So it's kind of neat.
Karen, I need my Kleenexes.
So All of this, now I want to say, like, that's a lot of good news, but it's not going perfectly. We're rolling this out with 820 staff, 6,200 students, and there's bumps along the way. So there's a ton of support that's been going on to coordinate all this and make this happen, and then continue to provide support along the way. So one of those things, supporting from behind the scenes, is really getting purposeful about the communication and connection. This is all a remote, so all of the communication is through email and WebEx and everything, and teachers could get inundated with emails. One of the things we said is we're going to stop. Teachers shouldn't get any emails from principals and district staff throughout the day. We can get them one message. And I just got to give a huge shout out to Erica. She's been amazing from the first day with making sure we're communicating both internally and externally well. And one of the things we started was, well, and this is what we mentioned, we started way back in March, were daily cabinet meetings and then principal meetings. And to this day, every morning at 9:15, as a cabinet, we meet for 45 minutes. We check in, what are the things we need to talk about? What do we need to get to the principals? Then we meet with the elementary principals for 45 minutes. And then we meet with the secondary principals every single day. And at the end of that time, we put out a daily digest of key topics for principals. So they get one message from the cabinet team, kind of summarizing up, and it basically is need to know, need to do, and we give them items that that they have. And then there's a daily communication that goes out to staff, teachers and staff in each school based on that, so that they're just getting one message a day with their updates. And then we're doing, then we do at least a weekly staff update across the district. One of the things that we really pushed was that, you know what, this is a brand new environment. Let's share the exemplars that we're seeing. So we really pushed principals, and some of them jumped right onto this. Like Tom Larson did an amazing job with this right from the start. Others have gotten more comfortable with it, but doing some shout outs that are exemplars of either instructional practice or kind of the culture that we want, of how people are supporting one another. So they all have 2 to 5 shout outs each day of either where they're recognizing things that staff have done, or they're sharing a comment that another teacher or another staff member has shared with them. And so every school has every day 2 to 5 shout outs that go out throughout the building. And the cool thing was that I shared with Cabinet the other day, I got a shout, one of our food service staff sent a long message to, it was myself and somebody else on Cabinet. I can't remember who else got it. Was it Clean? I can't remember. But anyways, she wanted to do a shout out, and to Amy Kimmel and to the staff working there. So you kind of see it scaling into the system, that simple thing where people are wanting to recognize one another's efforts. But we've really tried to get really purposeful, and this is what, you know, there's some benefits to this process. There's a lot of things we're learning, and there's some things with this that we definitely want to carry over when we're more in a face-to-face to just enhance that communication throughout the system. So thank you to Erica for the work that you've done with that. Supporting and improving instruction. There's also, we need to support, since I said we've got some great things happening, and then we have some people that still aren't as comfortable with this. So there's differentiated and individual staff coaching and support by coaches and ed services coordinators. So teachers are getting that support. Those that may not be as comfortable with this are getting more support. Those that are ready to run can run, and then we're sharing those exemplars as they're happening. One of the things we also instituted at the start was, and I kind of insisted on, especially as we got started with the instruction, was daily rounding by principals. And we want them to round with every teacher at least once a week. In normal environments, I ask them to do that at least once a month, but we've been asking them to do it at least once a week the last couple of weeks, and we'll continue with that because we really use the themes that they're hearing. Like last week, we spent time together reviewing all the themes that they had, which then guided influence the guiding change that we had for Monday about the professional learning and the planning time that we allowed for teachers, and made sure we were providing supports for them that they needed. There's collaborative team meetings at each site. So grade level teams, department teams, and those can be facilitated by KICS and others, coaches and others. But then what's been kind of amazing, teachers are collaborating more than we've ever seen. They're finding time to meet together, share ideas with one another, talk with one another more than ever. And then there's also, and Hope kind of referenced this, there's these ongoing just-in-time learning opportunities for teachers with various tools. So some start out with just the basics, and they're getting more and more comfortable in adding tools. And there's that kind of just-in-time learning for teachers with various tools. Then there's core operations, and this is really, Ryan's done a lot of work with the technology staff and others on this. Amy's been doing a lot of work, food service and others. Then of course, I already mentioned Colleen and Tony, but you can see the work that's been going on there has been pretty amazing. We've got cleaning protocols that are in line with CDC recommendations. Those are reviewed consistently. Tony's always bringing those up in our cabinet check-ins. Reducing use of HVAC, for example, in buildings not in use, and then just the ongoing support of employees support their own health needs and for their families at this time. So, and then we just thought, I'll just let you read these. These are just some community feedback that we've had. And I would say, you know, we've also had concerns that are shared, and I've talked with the people of that, but I would say it's easily 10 to 1, these kinds of comments that we're hearing. The first couple of days, there were a lot of concerns with the technology and the bumps we had. But once we got through those, it's been really good. So I'll just leave it up there for a minute and let you read those. This one, I've been simply awestruck by the enthusiasm and joy teachers have at being able to teach even from a distance. And this is a huge shout out to my kids' teachers. And you can read the rest. Two are kind of my 2 favorite ones that are on here. You have the presentations, I think, in front of you, so I'll just move on. So looking to the future, the near term, our focus has been and needs to continue to be really on the next 4 to 8 weeks as we continue to try to enhance learning and really support staff as we move forward and we really navigate the conclusion this year. I was meeting with cabinet yesterday, I think it was, wasn't it, you guys, when Mary Catherine Ricker, our commissioner, my phone rang and it was her. She called and talked to her, and she's some questions for me and wanted to share some things. One of the things she said is that most likely the governor at the end of this week or next week will extend the extended flexible learning for students into May, longer into May. She didn't know if it would be until mid-May or through the end of the year. I talked with her about some of the things that are important to me, like giving seniors an opportunity to come back, and that's something that she's already talking about, like having at least a senior back day, she was calling it, where seniors might be able to come back for a day, those kinds of things. But you know, I shared with her at some point we need to have at least a little more direction because there's some key events, which I'll talk about in a moment, that you know, what are we looking at here, and is that order of 10 or fewer? Is it going to be 50 or fewer? All those kinds of things have influences on what we are able to do. Midterm, which we'll be looking at the next 3 to 6 months, really. We're already in the midst. Amy and Ryan and Hope and others, we've been spending time really looking at budget and staffing. We're bringing the principals together. We have 4 different meetings with principals over the next week. So hopefully by end of next week, we'll have our school staffed for next year. So we are in the midst of that. Excuse my dog if you heard that. Our dog has a problem with burping after she eats. So wasn't me. But developing budget and staffing. So, and then looking at that, and then there's also just been some things with district operational plans, some projects that have had to be delayed. So we'll be doing that. We haven't been able to be kind of looking at our district operational plan into the future like we'd like to with the last few weeks, because it's been all hands on deck for this. But that's something we'll start moving to more here in the coming weeks and planning for that. And then long term, there's some real opportunities that we can leverage from this. For example, as we talked with the principals today, there were some great conversations yesterday where teachers are really talking about and understanding some of the work that Hope's team was already doing with teachers around looking at depths of knowledge and doing assessments where kids have to do more than just recall information, but really demonstrate their learning. And what teachers are saying, rather than worrying about students cheating in this environment, it's how do you increase the rigor of those assessments and how do they demonstrate their learning in ways that they really can't cheat. They have to be able to demonstrate their learning in another way. So there's things like that that are really going to benefit us long term because it's been really interesting to see how much deeper the conversations have been around learning among teachers in the past couple of weeks with this. And speaking of that, in the near term, part of the reason it's tough to jump into district operational planning for next year is we do have all of these things that are really important traditions and events that happen at this time of year that we have to look at. And so what we started doing was we started out just first, what are those things that are going to be held? And if if we can't hold it on the date it's going to be, do we just cancel it outright? Do we do it differently, or do we postpone it? And so we've talked with, as a cabinet team, we've talked with principals, we've got input from coordinators who are leading some of these things. And this is kind of where these fall right now. We haven't picked dates, but if we are not able to have high school graduation, which is looking unlikely that we'd be able to hold it on our scheduled date, is that the preference would be is that we would postpone it rather than try to do something either virtually or having kids drive up in their cars and hand them a diploma, that we would do move it to July or early August and do graduation that way. If for some reason we can't hold it at that point, then we'd have to come up with move it to do differently. But that's our plan with that right now. Prom, we won't be able to hold on its originally scheduled day, most likely, so we'll postpone it. We haven't picked a date yet, but we'll look at an alternative date for that. And if we can hold it prior to when graduation would be, we'll still do that, but we'll be looking at options for that here in the coming week and getting that out to people. Then there's a couple of key dates that are those key transitions for kids that we typically hold in the spring, where the kids get to come and visit their new school as they move from 4th to 5th grade or from 8th to 9th grade. So we want to look at still doing something with that in the summer for those kids. And then we do that retirement reception, which is always important to honor people that have, in this year, for example, we have a couple of retirees who've been in the district for over 40 years. So we definitely still want to do that. And that's something that could happen in the fall of next year. Has my video been out? Sorry. Thanks for saying that. Appreciate you sharing that. Amy, the video's been out. Then some things to do differently. There's an ACT. Obviously, each spring we do ACT for all of our juniors. We can't do that. So right now, we had a group look at that. Hope worked with a group from the high school and some district staff, and they looked at different options. We'd be looking at doing a voucher in June for those kids that want to do that in June or July, and then offer it for all the other kids in October. The reason we want to do that, offer an option in June or July, is for kids that might want to apply early action by November 1st. If they wait till October, they won't have their results back in time to do that. So that's why we want to do that and give them that opportunity. It does cost $9 more per student. So when we get to my superintendent report, I'll just ask you to make sure that that's something that you don't have concerns with. But staff appreciation, which we normally do, and all of you come around with myself and others, and we serve roles and so on. I don't think we'll be able to do that here in 2 weeks. So we've got to come up with another way to do that. Kindergarten roundup, we want to do something come before school starts for our kindergartners. Scholarship and award night, what we're looking at already doing is doing some type of video, so everybody that honors the kids and calls out who gets the different scholarships, we'd still do that, record it, and make it a quality production for kids. I know Kevin Dutcher has some ideas about what he might be able to do differently with the musical, so we explore that, supporting that. National Signing Day is another one. Our Panther Mentors is another one that we'll have to do differently, because we still need to identify who they are. And then there's different things that we'll just cancel school-specific events, athletic events. Something that's already been canceled, for example, is Summer Academy. It gets hosted at, typically it's in Columbia Heights. There's a number of districts. It's for gifted and talented students, but that's already been canceled. Leadership camp for this summer has been canceled. But that's it. Any questions as you look at that? I think the most important one on there, obviously with the biggest political edge, is graduation. So does anybody have concerns with the idea of postponing it into July or early August, if that's what we need to do? I think it's an important milestone event. I did talk with Chris Lennox in Mounds View. Mounds View is looking at still trying to provide a graduation at both Mounds View and Irondale. Jason Berg and Farmington I consulted with, same thing there. I know Hannah and David Law said they may just look at doing something virtually, but I think it's a milestone event for kids, and I don't want to steal that from them. I still want to try to do it if we can, but wanted to hear what people's thoughts are on that one, if there are any concerns with that.
I have a question. This is Michael.
Yep.
Not about graduation, sorry, but on this slide, has there been any thought given to the status of summer school?
Yeah, we've started talking about that. Is that something we do remotely or what? But yeah, that's kind of, Colleen's already started with exploring options for it, but we don't have a clear picture of what we'll be kind of looking at for options to be able to provide that this summer. So
I imagine that if it's available, there may be more people that would want to take advantage of it this year. That's just speculation.
yeah. Yep, and we'll have to look at that. And one of the things we have to get still is guidance from the state on what they're going to require from us if we do that, because of how we need for summer school and what the kids need to do with a learning plan and so on. And it'll be interesting to see what they come up with for the requirements for them, if there's any shifts in that. There's been not a lot of discussion about that yet at this point from MDE.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Does anybody else have any questions about this slide? I will just throw out.
Just to answer Jeff's question, I think having a potential date in July or August would be good. It's better than canceling, or I think something different. It's good. The only concern is there are those students who may be entering military or some other opportunity who may not be able to attend with it being out so late. But I don't think we really have another option on that. So I'm fine with a potential July, August date.
Yeah, and one of the things we've already talked about is there still be, would we still do something for those kids? There'll be the kids that will just choose not to. Those kids that can't, what can we do? Where they would still maybe be able to come in and in their cap and gown, get a picture and get it handed to them by either Matthew Boucher, board member there, whatever. We'll come up with something. We want to just do whatever we can to get the best experience we can to kids. So.
I don't know if others of you have heard about this from families, but I clearly have a senior, so we are personally invested. But I've also heard this is the question I get the most from the community over the last few weeks: is what are we doing about graduation and prom? But obviously, graduation is the most important of those things. So I appreciate the district's willingness to looking to postponing it if we have to, because it's obviously a big day for a lot of families.
And Amy, I had one more question for Jeff.
Yeah.
Kind of related. Your discussion with the commissioner regarding possibly extending the distance learning. There was a gap for some districts of when they could start the extended learning. Is there any discussions around how those days where their students were not in school would be made up? Would they go to the legislature and just say those days are forgiven, or would they have to extend their school year?
Yeah, no, nobody's going to have to extend their school year for those for the result of what they've done with this. So.
Okay.
Anybody else on this slide? Jeff, I think we can. Next one.
I'm going to talk about honoring the seniors. It kind of stinks for our seniors, probably more than anybody else in the class, that just missing all those things that are part of wrapping up 13 years for the vast majority of our kids in a school district. So there's a lot of conversation about what are some of the ways we can honor them, and the Panther Foundation has voted, I think it was unanimously, Colleen, but to support getting a yard sign, like you can see in the picture here, that will be brought to each one of our students. We haven't figured out exactly how we'll get that delivery done yet, but we'd like to personalize it by having advisors or something like that do that, so that there's a connection. It's not just come and pick them up or anything like that, but it's just a simple thing that we can do. And then you may remember the senior spotlights that we do. Erica shared with me today that she's got 6 of those in the hopper ready to go, and we'll be doing more of those throughout the spring. But it's going to be a big part of the spring here is how do we help the seniors as they work through this. So, and then we just wanted to wrap up. We had Spirit Week last week, and it was kind of fun. Here's some pictures from Spirit Week. You can see it was fun to do that. And it was surprising to see how many people truly did participate in each one of those days. So it was a lot of fun. That's it.
Just mentioned too, Jeff, that the district has also been participating in the Monday night, putting the stadium lights on at 8:20 for all the students in the district, not just the seniors. And our district has been profiled in a couple of the stories because our stadium looks so good, probably. But it's a wonderful thing it's kind of something much like the signs happening in districts all across the state. So nice to kind of be a part of something. All right. Any final questions on that presentation from anybody? Good to see you all again. All right. Moving on to superintendent's report.
Okay, just a couple of things. I already mentioned the ACT testing, and I just wanted to confirm that see if anybody had concerns with the idea of doing a voucher for students who want to take it in June. It's $9 more per student, so I can't imagine we'd have more than 100 or two. I can't even imagine that 200 would do it, but if they did, that's if I do my math right, that's $1,800. So we've got bigger expense things, which I'll highlight in a moment here around our budget things. But anything with that any concerns with that?
Definitely try to encourage those students to take that test.
This is Tony. My only question would be is logistics of the test. This is extended. How would they be able to actually take the test? And yeah, that's the only thing. But that's outside of our scope of control.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the ACT that will.
The June and July voucher option is they're both national test dates. That's what the voucher would be for. And then the October administration would be a local district administered ECT, which is what we usually do. So yeah, any changes to anything that would happen with June and July sessions would be all handled by ECT.
The next thing is just looking at, obviously, we're not going to have that April work session because we're still going to be in the stay-at-home order where that was scheduled. So Amy Hennon and I talked, I think first about this a couple days ago, and then talked again yesterday, and then again today. But looking at originally saying, well, it'd be really nice if the stay-at-home order is lifted, and even if it's so, we could do appropriate social distancing if you have to do that, to actually have a face-to-face meeting, and that way to have the replace that retreat with a work session and do that May 5th. But then now with the governor yesterday extending his ability to, I can't remember what it's called, emergency standing, and wondering what that will do if he does extend that order at all, would be rather than waiting all the way till May 5th, is that we do, if we have to do a meeting like this, that we would do it on April 28th. But we would make the decision on that early next week sometime based on what we're hearing and what we've learned. So but I would talk with Amy Hennon on that and just get back to you and post that appropriately.
Right. People could kind of leave those Tuesdays open for now. I don't know what you have scheduled these days, but if you could leave those evenings open until we know more, that would be great.
And the reason I want to get together is to just give you more of an update. You may have heard, like, for example, the University of Minnesota, it's millions and millions. I can't remember how many millions, 30 million, $35 million. They're worried about this. They're hitting their budget. And you may have wondered, and some of you may have asked. So Amy and Ryan did a lot of work. I met with them and pulling things together. And we looked at really what's the savings we have around this, which is really just what are our avoided expenses. So March through June 30th that we have as a result of this, and then what are our unanticipated expenses and or unanticipated loss of revenue that we had budgeted, and so where do we sit right now? And so just to walk you through that, kind of like some avoided expenses, and Ryan jokes about it and says, hey, we've had 100% fill rate for our substitute teachers since March 11th or whatever it's been. But obviously, we've avoided a lot of expenses for subs the remainder of this year. Heat and electricity, we've lowered that. Then we've saved like, well, we anticipate saving about 90,000 in heat and electricity the last part of the year. So a few unfilled positions as a result of this. Fuel for transportation, so but it adds up to about $525,000 of avoided expenses for the spring as a result of this. On the other hand, though, loss of revenue and additional expenses is, for example, in community ed, it's about $400,000 of additional expenses in childcare. Combination of, it's really not additional expenses because it's our childcare staff, but it's lost revenue. We're providing that childcare without any revenue. So that's about $400,000. And at this point, we haven't heard anything from the state. We are directed to provide the childcare, but at this point, there hasn't been anything about any revenue to do that. Now we can offset it. The one thing they've given us is the flexibility to transfer money across funds. So we're $525,000 to good, we could move it over. The other $200,000 in community ed is facilities rental, camps, and so on. And that's so that's 200. So it's about 600,000 in the community ed budget to the either lost revenue or unanticipated expenses. Now that's through June 30th, anticipating that we would have this going through the remainder of the school year. So that this could shift and could flex based on if we started bringing things back. Food service, as you know, you got the highlight there of all the meals that we're providing, but that's about $350,000 of lost revenue that we have for the meals that we are providing at this point, and we still have the staff. So it's about $1 million of. So the good news is this is why we have that big fund balance, but we don't think it will end up necessarily being at 1 million. We're going to spend time over the next couple of weeks, Amy and Brian and myself, and digging into this more. There's implications we can look at. You know, we've talked about furloughing staff, but if you furlough staff, there's a couple, you know, what are the unintended implications that we want to avoid? We've got a really strong childcare staff, and if we lose them, there's still the private childcares that, for example, are still running. We're not going to keep these people. They're going to go and take new jobs. We don't want to lose them. Or if they don't take jobs, we're still going to be paying unemployment. So there's things like that implications that we want to consider. It's not just as simple as, oh, let's cut staff that we don't have there. But we also don't know at what point what kind of state aid there may be or where we'll go. But I just wanted to give you a picture. It's not anywhere like what the U is or what you might have heard about Minneapolis schools or St. Paul schools. It's obviously a deficit for these last few months with that. But overall, our budget still sits good. That's also why we want to have this work session at the end of April or early May. We'll give you another picture of the budget for this year. We're going to want to do some budget revisions at the June meeting, not the May meeting, because we're going to need that time to get a better picture of where it sits for this year. So we'll do a budget revision at the June meeting, and we'll still want to keep you up to speed moving forward for that, actually approving the fiscal 21 budget. So I just wanted to provide an overview of that as well. So any questions on that?
Questions? All right, thanks, Jeff. Moving on to action items, we have several construction bid approvals to do, and those materials went out the last few days. I mean, do you want to do just like a quick overview for us?
To walk through all three of them quick so that we don't have to kind of keep coming back into it, but we do have three separate bids. This is always the time of year that we are looking at doing our summer projects for facilities. So we tend to have these every single year. Very similar ones too. So the first one is a pavement rehabilitation project at 4 of our sites. The District Service Center, the high school, Westwood, and Park Terrace. And this is mostly like crack and chip filling, resealing, and striping. We received 4 bids and we're recommending awarding that to the lowest bidder, which was Minnesota Roadways for just over $240,000. The second project is roofing project, and that is at the high school and at Westwood. 5 bids were received for that one. The roofing areas are around the gym and pool area at the high school and the gym area at Westwood. Of the 5 bids, again, recommending the low bidder, which was McPhillips Brothers for just over $102,000. The third project is exterior wall repairs. This one we actually received 10 bids on, which is a crazy high number. This is one that we are actually not recommending the low bidder. With the bid law process, you actually are required to award it to the low bidder unless you have reasons that you are not going to do that. So in working with InSpec, which was is a consultant that we use when doing kind of these roofing and exterior projects. They went back and they found several things with this company that none of us are comfortable moving forward with them. Their bid was extremely low, less than half of the average for all of the other bids. The range in bids went from the low of 210,000 to the high of 781. And they were well on the low side. So with that, the company is less than 4 years old. We typically in these projects ask for projects they've done that are over 5 years old so that we can kind of verify the work that was done. Not all the reference checks came back very well. Not all their past clients. One of them said that they couldn't get them to come back and finish the job. They overstated in their bid some of the size of their past projects. They haven't done any projects anywhere near the size of this one. And they were missing company financial statement information that was required as part of the bid. So with all of those things combined, we're actually recommending moving to the second lowest bidder, which is Mid-Continental Restoration, and their bid of $313,000. So and that is for, like I said, the exterior wall repairs. So those are at the 2-story area at the high school and the gym area. So those are the 3 projects we're recommending forward with, and if there's any questions.
Yeah, if anybody has questions, we'll be taking action on all 3 of those now. So this will be a good time. Anybody? We'll move on to some action items then. Can I get a motion on the first one, please?
Move Strobel.
Second, Wheaton.
All right, working on my iPad here. Motion by Strobel, second by Wheaton. Award bid for pavement rehabilitation projects at District Services Center, Spring Lake Park High School, Westwood Intermediate and Middle School, and Park Terrace Elementary School. Any discussion? All right, Amy, can you take the roll call, please?
So?
Did you hear me? Okay, okay. I said it, yes.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Kroon?
Yes.
Mr. Strobel?
Yes.
Ms. Forsberg?
Yes.
Ms. Wheaton, yes. Mr. Easter?
Yes.
Ms. Hennon?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. On, can I get a motion to award the bid for a roofing project at Spring Lake Park High School?
Forsberg.
Motion by Forsberg,
Second by Easter.
second Easter. Any discussion on that one? All right, clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Bowe?
Yes.
Mr. Kroon?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Strobel?
You hear me?
Forsberg?
Marilyn?
Yes.
Ms. Wheaton, yes. Mr. Easter?
Yes.
Ms. Hennon?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Finally, can I get a motion on the exterior wall repairs?
Forsberg.
Motion by Ms. Forsberg, second.
Second by Easter.
Second by Easter. For exterior wall repairs at Spring Lake Park High School and Westwood Intermediate and Middle School. Any discussion on this one? All right, Ms. Wheaton,
Ms. Bowe?
call the roll, please.
Yes.
Mr. Kroon?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes.
Forsberg?
Yes.
Forsberg?
She said yes.
Yes.
Ms. Wheaton, yes. Mr. Easter?
Yes.
Ms. Hennon?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. On to Staff Appreciation Week, May 3rd through 9, 2020. Is there a motion?
Move. moved. Wheaton.
Second by
Ms.
Strobel.
Wheaton, second by Mr. Strobel to adopt the following resolution. Whereas the education of youth is essential to the future of our community, state, country, and world. And whereas educators fill many roles as listeners, explorers, role models, motivators, and mentors. And whereas the outstanding staff of Spring Lake Park Schools, with their diverse training, talents, and dedication, help open students' minds to ideas, knowledge, and dreams in preparation for their life beyond high school. And whereas educators continue to influence us long after our school days are only memories. And whereas educators have had to reinvent school in response to the global pandemic of COVID-19 and create meaningful learning opportunities for our students, as they also personally balance the current realities of this pandemic in their own lives. And whereas staff from across the school district have been called upon to continue to feed our community's children and provide childcare to healthcare workers and first responders, as they also continue to educate the 6,200 students of our district. And whereas the school board of Spring Lake Park Schools wishes to extend its thanks and appreciation to all staff who make Spring Lake Park School District a world-class learning community of choice all the time, and specifically continue to do so in times of crisis. Therefore, be it resolved, the school board of Spring Lake Park Schools thanks all staff of Spring Lake Park Schools for their tremendous commitment and dedication, and hereby declares May 3rd through 9th, 2020 as Staff Appreciation Week in Spring Lake Park Schools. Never before has this been more appropriate.
Right.
Any discussion on this one?
I'll say one thing, and that is that, we've spent a lot of time in the last 10 years plus talking about facilities, and right now, that's not really important to us. What's important to us are basically staff and what they're doing with our students. So this is what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's great, Jen.
We're very grateful. All right, let's do our roll call.
Ms. Bell.
Yes.
Mr. Kroon.
Yes.
Mr. Strobel.
Yes.
Ms. Forsberg.
Yes, yes, yes.
Ms. Wheaton, yes. Mr. Easter.
Yes.
Ms. Hennon.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you. Moving on to acknowledgement of gifts. Is there a motion?
So moved by Easter.
Motion by Easter.
Second, Wheaton.
Mr. Wheaton. The following resolution. School Board Policy 706 establishes guidelines for the acceptance of gifts to the district. Whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 states that a school board may accept a gift of real or personal property by the adoption of a resolution approved by 2/3 of its members. Therefore, be it resolved that the school board of Spring Lake Park Schools accepts with appreciation the gifts as shown in attachment 5, or in this case, on your screen. As always, we are extremely grateful to our community for their support, both everything on this donation list and everything the Panther Foundation has done for us the last few months. Any other discussion on gifts? Oh, please.
Ms. Bowe.
Yes.
Kroon.
Yes.
Mr. Strobel.
Yes.
Forsberg.
Yes.
Ms. Wheaton, yes. Mr. Easter.
Yes.
Ms. Hennon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Right, moving on to board forum and reports. I don't think we have a lot of PTO meetings to report on probably. Does anybody have any reports to share?
Well, I'll just say briefly that 916 had a meeting by Audio Electronics, and it was quite a brief meeting, very much items that just needed to be done, a number of insurance renewals, and like our meeting tonight, a lot of reports because 916 is such a diverse population, having career and tech special ed area learning centers, and they have never done childcare, so that was added to it. So, but that entity continues to move on. Some of the special ed situations are difficult, and some of the staff is making home visits, but like all of us, we carry on.
Thanks, Marilyn. Anybody else? Right,
Thanks,
before
Tony.
we adjourn, oh yeah, go ahead, Tony.
Just at the last PTO meeting at Terrace, several parents had shared with me just their, and it's probably so appropriate now. A few parents shared with me their just they're overwhelmed with the amazing response they get from the teachers at Park Terrace, and they specifically called out Mona Perkins for her just her commitment to the students and what she's done. I shared that with Jeff. I actually had one parent in tears who has a son who has high functioning autism, and the year before Mona joined our team was a tough year for them, and it's a 180 turnaround for him. And she was just in tears and couldn't thank us enough as a district for bringing her on board. So I did want to share that with the rest of the board members.
Thank you, Tony. That's wonderful. Anybody else?
I want to give a shout out to Mike at the American Legion, who keeps bringing donuts and coffee out to the volunteers who are there and the workers who are there serving meals. And he is just a sweet guy. And he how many times did he thank us, Tony? I mean, he just kept thanking and thanking, and yeah, he's a great guy. They're doing takeout lasagnas. If anyone wants to look them up on Facebook, they're doing lasagnas there that you can take out. So shout out to Mike.
Excellent. Did you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say on the Lions Club Foundation, where we pushed back our spring meeting where we usually decide on how much money to release for scholarships. You know, obviously with the stock market and stuff, I'm not sure where that's gonna land or whatever, but that meeting is postponed, and I don't think we currently have a date scheduled yet. So just wanted you guys to be aware of that.
Michael, is that to decide for scholarships for this spring or next spring?
It would be for this spring.
Oh, wow.
We are planning on meeting still. It's just we pushed it back. I think we're waiting for a little more clarity on what's coming going forward, but I do believe we're still planning on meeting this spring.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, before we adjourn, I just want to say thank you for your patience, everybody, and bearing with us through this. It's nice to see your faces and hear your voices, even if it's just digitally. So thank you for your patience. Anybody have anything else before we adjourn?
I miss seeing everybody.
I know.
I miss my board member colleagues in the cabinet. So hope everybody's doing well.
I'm particularly disappointed that we have to postpone or cancel or whatever our retreat. I really enjoy those, but we'll have another one on the road. All right.
Amy,
Can I get a Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just want to, if any of you have questions about the recording, when that will get posted, it'll get posted as soon as we can. It sometimes takes even a couple hours for WebEx to turn it around for us. Sometimes it happens right away. So if there's a delay, it's just because it's taking some time. Once we hit stop record, then it just takes a few time for us to download. So, hello.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Easter.
By Easter.
Forsberg.
By Forsberg to adjourn the meeting. Or could you call the roll one last time, please?
I have a column for this one. I forgot to put this on here.
Hey, wing it, man.
I can't adjourn.
Ms. Bowe,
Yes.
Mr. Kroon,
Yes.
Mr. Strobel,
Yes.
Ms. Forsberg,
Yes. Yes.
okay, Ms. Wheaton, yes, Mr. Easter,
Yes.
Tenon.
Yes. We will
Motion
adjourn.
passes.
Awesome. We are adjourning the meeting at 8:24. Be well, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.